Hello, I'm making this video response to your interesting questions, and you pose questions that many people have asked. And sadly to say that there are questions people been asking for centuries, and the answer is very short and very simple, and it's a shame that so many people don't know. But before I act like I'm a expert on life, which I'm not, I would like to tell you a little about my background, because I feel as though before a person take or heed advice or listen to anything from anybody, they have to know at least something about how is it that this person know or think they know, or what is it that they're talking about. Well, since the topic is religion and Bible, then I will introduce my religious and biblical background. One, my parents were non-religious. They wasn't against God. They believed in God, but they didn't go to church, or didn't make us go to church, and they didn't tell us to pray. Some people like that. They never went to church, never listened to Christian music or religious music or anything of that sort. So I did not gain my perspective of how I feel about God or Jesus or the angels or the devil or heaven or hell. I did not gain my perspective from my family or friends. I developed it my own way, which is the way that God prefers us to find out for ourselves whether He really exists or not. That posed the answer to scientific evidence, which is, to me, the fact that there's some people who say, including yourself, who have said it in written form, that there's no scientific evidence that God exists. However, I think that's wrong, because there is. The fact that you did not create yourself, and God Himself created our evidence, that in itself is the fact that God exists. The fact that I did not create these trees, and no amount of science, I can know all the science in the world, and I can know how to create anything in the world, but I cannot design a whole new world. And stuff don't just happen. Things just don't appear. Stuff just don't show up. This world did not just boom, bang, chihuahua, and it's here. That cannot happen. You cannot see air, but air is there. You cannot see bacteria in the rain, but it's there. There's some microscopic molecules inside water, living molecules on our tongue. That is proven from scientific evidence. Yes. Recently, in this day and age and form. However, 1,000 years ago, if somebody were to tell you that water was microscopic molecules of strands, would you believe it 1,000 years ago? You would ask, well, you can't prove it. We can't see it. However, it's always was. It was created that way. It always been that way. Whether you knew it, liked it, loved it, hated it, or not. It always been here. It always been there, whether you was aware of it or not. It's just a matter of time periods changing, or whether you believe it now, because it's more easier to not believe things now. Because back then people was looking for answers, any answers. They would accept any answers. As crazy as it may seem, any answers would have been acceptable. So people who rely on proven evidence are going to be skeptical of the past history. They are going to ask, well, how did they find out that or realize that? That can't be proven. That can't be true. And that's understandable. I don't blame those people or those scientists who wonder and who likes to discover. However, being too nosy and trying to discover and getting every answer of everything is one of the downfalls of man. Satan tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden, which corrupted the first fall, which made the perfect world where people didn't starve, people wasn't hungry, people did not need to eat. God created us and this world immortal. We did not need to eat. So for people today to say, well, how is there a loving God when people are starving and hurting? That's true. One would wonder. But you must understand that when God created us, we did not need to eat. That's why God loved us that much that he did that for us. Satan came to Eve and Adam both, tempting them. They betrayed their God. They decided to do that. God created us one way for a purpose for our way. However, he did not create dummies. He did not create robots. He did not create models. He created us to think and physically be able to make decisions for ourselves. That's the whole purpose of what and why we go through what we go through, is because he created us. And I know that for a fact because the Bible tells me so. The Bible says that we were created with agency. Agency means the ability to think for ourselves. As powerful as God is, he could have made us like robots. He could have made us where we do everything his way, the way that he wanted us. If God created us for his own greed, just to pick on us, to mess with us, to make us suffer, he could have made us that way. But instead, he said, no, I'm going to make you where you can decide to love me or to hate me. Yes, there'll be consequences, good or bad. But you have to decide that. Adam and Eve was perfect, but they still had their own mind to decide and make decisions, and Satan seeing that they was not that smart. They were easily manipulated, and he used that to their disadvantage, which caused the fall of man. Which was strong, it made them no longer immoral, because you have to be holy in the presence of God. When they did what they did, they disobeyed him. They could no longer see the face of God. There were once upon a time where people could stand and see God, face to face, speak to God face to face, talk to God face to face. That is no longer anymore. So for people to say now there's no scientific evidence and there's no evidence proving that we can't talk to God and we can't hear God. God says as a prophecy in the Bible, there will be a time where you will have no proof of me. That in itself is a prophecy. That in itself is proof that what God said then, it's now proven that it is true. If you look behind you or in front of you, you cannot see him. Therefore, when God said There will be a time people will ask that question. To me, in itself, it proves that God knows things before it happens, because he said it some odd thousand years ago, and look at today, it is still true, and people are still asking that question. Someone just like you is still saying the same thing with the same curiosity as God said that there will be. That's proven that it's true. That's proven that that the prophecy was fulfilled. The prophecy has came. There were once upon a time that people could see Moses at the time of Exodus, the great departure out of Egypt to the promised land. I'm sure you heard of that before. Moses could see God. He could talk to God. He was the only man that could talk to God. God showed himself. God don't just is there. He show himself when he wants to show himself. He appear when he wants to appear. If you ask him to appear just to prove something, just to be skeptical, God he pays no attention or any mind to people that use his name in vain. That is one of the 10 commandments. He is not going to entertain people who ask about him or speak of his name in such a way just to prove that he do not exist, or to even prove that he do exist. He don't ask people to go around proving that he exists. He don't ask people to go around proving that he don't. It's up to you to decide in your heart. That's how I know that my God exists. Because magical, unexplained, mysterious things that has happened in my life that no amount of science could explain. Only the supernatural that does not exist or cannot stand in a regular human form or mind can ever explain that way. That's how I know God exists. People in my family have died and came back. Tell me, can science speak about that and tell me? If you can answer that, then maybe I can be more skeptical on what's real and what's not. So I don't know how so many miracles happen. There has been so many moments where I should have died. There have been so many moments where my brother should have died. My mother has already died twice, and my mother is living today and she is not buried. Okay, people, science cannot speak about that, how your heart stops and everybody preparing a funeral and you wake up. Only in the zombie movie, right? But not in real life. But yes, in real life it happened. So you cannot say what happens in the real world and what don't. It doesn't work out that way. It's up to you to physically go through pain and misery to have the understanding, because at one point we could not feel pain. We didn't need to eat. God told Adam and Eve that they could have the fruits and the vegetables, but they did not need it. If they wanted to eat it, they could, but they didn't need it. That shows you how man can be so greedy and so greed, because you don't need something and you use it anyway and you do it anyway, to the point where now we need, and without it we will die. And he said it. He says, you eat that and your life gonna be different and you will surely die. At one point people didn't die. The past cannot be undone. So once they've done that, now we have to say, why God, why did my mother just die? Why did my father just die? Why did my child just die? People have to die. We all have to die, and you cannot get angry or mad at God for that, because nothing lasts forever but God. He was the beginning, he'll be the end, and that's that, like it or not.